Glassman, thank you so much for joining us today for this, what I know is going to be an incredible webinar because it is with an incredible human. So I'm Keri Glassman, registered dietitian. By the way, I wasn't referring to myself there. I'm referring to the person I'm going to be interviewing, who I'll introduce after myself. So I'm Keri Glassman, registered dietitian, if you don't know me, founder of NutritiousLife.com and the Nutritious Life Studio, home to our signature course, the Nutritious Life Certification. And today I'm chatting with Lisa Hayim, an absolutely incredible, that's why I was using the word incredible for her, an absolutely incredible registered dietitian, human, and just real woman, powerful girl boss, amazing person. So Lisa is a registered dietitian, and she helps people learn tools to listen to their body while utilizing science, something we love at Nutritious Life. And she also just launched her own online course called Fork the Noise, which you should absolutely check out. And it's an incredible resource. So here is Lisa. Say hi, Lisa.
Hey guys, thank you so much for coming and joining us at 3 o'clock or whatever time you're at. We're getting close to Friday nonetheless. So I thought that yesterday was Thursday, so now today is a lot closer to where I thought we were at the end of the week. It's been a long week.
We're almost there. We're almost there. Okay, so just to get started, you know, I obviously know you personally now for a while, and you not only obviously are you an alumni of the Nutritious Life Studio, but you're also a dear, dear friend. So I know a lot about your path to where, you know, to get you to where you are now in your personal life, but also in your career. So can you just take us back a little bit though, because I think you have a really wonderful story and everybody has a different journey. And I think yours is really wonderful. And I think people would love to hear sort of what was your path to get you where you are now?
Great. And I think that I will tell my story, of course, but there's literally, I just want to say, like, no path that there's no one right path. Like, everybody's path looks so different. And to end up where I am, which just means, you know, working as a nutrition professional, I don't think that you necessarily need to do any of the steps that I did, all of the steps that I did, or even necessarily be a dietitian to work in health, which is really cool. So I think that as a dietitian, I took probably the longest, hardest route, with the most obstacles and applications, and with applications come rejections. And I kind of feel like the harder the route, the more doors you have available at the end, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go that route. If you know exactly what you want to do, there could be a more direct way to get there. So just wanted to, you know, if you're interested in nutrition and you're here, it doesn't have to be a 7 or 8 year process like it was for me. But nutrition is the only thing that has been my like long-standing passion or interest. When I was going to college for the first time, I remember like I sat down with the advisor and they asked me what I wanted to do, and like nutrition rolled off my tongue, and I was like 18 years old. And I was also interested in fashion and all these things. And, you know, she basically told me that, okay, well, in order to do nutrition, you also have to do chemistry and biochemistry and organic and everything, you know, all like basically pre-med was the route. And I went to college like to have fun. So chemistry was like the most difficult class for me in high school. Like I could not understand chemistry at all. And I was like, well, I can't do chemistry, so I sure as hell can't do chemistry in college where I have like none of my resources, like tutors and, you know, all the things that I had back at home. So I was just like, oh, I guess I'll go into fashion, you know. So
wait, this is so funny. So meanwhile, sorry to interject for 1 second. I obviously started off by saying, I know a lot of your story. I want you to share it though. I never knew this part of it. And I don't know if you know that that's part of my story. That when I went to Tufts, as you know, and we had 2 science requirements. and I had this very strong interest in nutrition. And Tufts actually, has a great nutrition program. And we had this dining hall at the time called Pound, which was, the healthy dining hall. I always loved to go there. No one ever wanted to come with me. But anyway, I really wanted to take Nutrition 1, and I was dying to take it. And I talked to my advisor, and he was like, it's really science heavy though, you should know. And I completely got scared. I ended up taking something called Plants and Humanities because I heard it was the easiest science, and I never took nutrition at Tufts. And I ended up majoring in political science with a minor in philosophy. Nothing to do with nutrition. And it's so fun because I totally got swayed because I was like, no, I'm not a science person. Meanwhile, fast forward, I loved organic chemistry when I ended up taking it when I went back to get my master's. So sorry for the sidetrack there, but I never even knew we had that in common.
Yeah, no, me neither, but exactly the same. I ended up taking one nutrition course like for fun with my fashion major. And the school that I was at, because I actually transferred in undergrad, but they actually had Florida State actually had a great nutrition program. Yeah. But at that point I was in fashion, and then I transferred to University of Miami, and they didn't have fashion or nutrition. So they sort of like both went out the window. But I just to your point, anybody who is interested, like I also loved chemistry and organic chemistry as a master's, or going to get my master's as a prereq. Like, and it's just really interesting, like A, what you think you can and can't do, and B, what you think you could do as like a 17 or 15-year-old versus 25 or like wherever you are. Like the brain is able, you have more confidence, study skills, all these things that you didn't have. So that I totally with you. Hated it when I was little, and then like you learn the language and you could kind of like fall in love with science even if you think you're not a science person.
Completely agree. And even if you don't fall in love with it, it's still sometimes just a means to an end to get you to the career you want, and that's okay too.
Yes. So I ended up majoring in something else, and around my junior year, I was trying to think of like what I was going to do when I graduated, which was a year away. And I was getting my master's in communications, and I just like was doing the internships and like advertising and whatnot, and I just couldn't see myself like starting a job in that. And so like I asked myself, like, what is your sustained interest over time? And it was still back to nutrition. And I Googled like how to become a nutritionist or a dietitian, because like whatever I was doing, I wanted like the best way to do it. I knew I didn't want I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to be, I guess, like a dietitian. I found Columbia's program. I knew it was back in New York where I'm from. I reached out to the advisor. She was this woman, Dr. Sporney, and I just like fell in love with her. And I didn't even apply anywhere else for my master's besides for there, which was really stupid in hindsight, but also characteristic of me.
It's not stupid. I mean, you liked the program. And by the way, there aren't so many programs out there, to be honest. And also, especially in New York, there aren't so many programs to become a dietitian.
Yeah.
So
if I looked into NYU's program, I probably would have done NYU just because I had to then move back to New York, do prerequisites at 8 different colleges between Tribeca in Manhattan to Long Island, Hofstra. Like I was just all over the place to do the prerequisites necessary to even apply to Columbia. So the whole thing took a long time is my point, and it was hard, and you had to take GREs. So there's different program differences, but anyway, lots of rejections along the way. Didn't score high enough on my GREs to get into Columbia, had to retake them. Got in pretty much because I had formed a relationship with Dr. Sporney, and she knew that I was passionate, if not anything else, and determined. And
which goes to show you that always wins.
Yes, it does.
Passion, determination always wins over, an exact score, or how what scores, supposedly tell you like how smart this, you are.
The importance of relationships in general, I feel like have really gotten me to, again, like, I don't know where I am, I'm saying I am, but like to the point in my life that I am, I know that I wouldn't be successful or have the opportunities if I didn't create relationships with people that were willing to create them back to me, yourself very much included in this equation. So it became, did my internship. I first got rejected from an internship, then applied again. And throughout that first year of, did the whole thing to get my master's, was finishing up my master's, applied to do the internship, got rejected, and pretty much was left with like, oh my God, what do I do? I just spent the last 3 years trying to become a dietitian. Doing the internship is that rate limiting step. Like, you need that internship to become a dietitian. So the fact that I didn't get one was really scary. I was no longer like 22. I think I was probably like 24, 25, it was like trying to become an adult, trying to not lean on my parents. And I was kind of stuck. And so I took a good look at my resume and was like, okay, well, what's missing? And, my grades were really good, but I didn't have like real experience working in a hospital or shadowing a dietitian or any of those things that they're even like kind of looking for. So that summer I left New York City and worked at a weight loss camp. It's a whole other story to get into. And then when I got back, I needed a full-time job that was going to give me pay, but also boost my resume. And so I applied to work at the hospital and like really work. And I got a job in food service, and I worked there for a year in the basement, getting my butt absolutely kicked. It was the hardest, but most important shaping year of my life. Then applied again for the internship, got the internship, did a year. At the very tail end, we had an elective, which they let us do. I reached out to you, Keri, and I just wrote a blog post. If any of you want to read it, if you just go to the wellnecessities.com, you could see Keri's exact reaction to me cold emailing with typos, grammatical errors, asking to be her intern. And it was just like a straight up yes, and we'll figure it out.
Well, it's so funny on that though. Sorry, it's so funny because one, obviously I don't remember that email. And I think it's so funny that you actually have that email still saved. It's so funny. And I actually am really a tough critic when it comes to grammar. And if I interview somebody and they send back a thank you note and there's a grammatical mistake, I really think about that. And usually there is no second interview. I'm really tough with that because I feel like it really shows so much about you being diligent and just so many different things. So the fact that like there was so much to you that it just went right.
Back to the other point was that personal relationship. We didn't quite have one, but we had, there weren't Instagram stories back then, but like I was following you from the beginning. I showed us, wasn't trying to show it. I had an interest in you. And I remember like we either would talk on like Instagram pictures, like comments, or maybe it was direct message. So we had like a very small rapport, but like you knew that I think that you probably knew that it wasn't like I was cold emailing whoever I could get. Like I was like, no, this is the one internship that I want. And you probably felt that, like, just because like I get emails all the time too, and I always try to meet them with enthusiasm and help somebody. But like, if I see that somebody didn't take the time of day to even like get my name right,
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying is normally I do really, look at that. But obviously the thing that I look at in a bigger way is the passion and, just the energy of the person. And so for you, I just could clearly see your passion, just how good you are as a human. And like you said, there wasn't even that much of a connection or that much back and forth on Instagram at that point, but I could just feel it. And I do remember thinking, wow, this girl is going to go places in nutrition and I want to see her do it. And if I can help in any possible way, I want to help her. So I remember feeling that way. Like it could make me cry thinking about where you are now. Oh my God, I'm such a mush. No, but it really could. Because I think about that now and I'm like, thank God, thank God that I was like, yes, like, let's do this.
Yeah. And I remember before that email, just like, you were in some magazine. Well, I've been following you through magazines for a long time, but I remember somehow learning about TNS, the program that I'm an alumni of now, and being like, what is this? I don't get it. What is this woman doing? It sounds amazing, but what is it? I like couldn't wrap my head, but I remember like exactly which apartment I was living in when I learned about it. I don't remember how I learned about it. And then when I interned for you, I was just a couple of weeks, not even doing, things related to nutrition so much. At this point in your career, you had just finished your private practice, sold it, I think, right? That's the correct language?
Yeah, passed it off really to Lara. Yeah, to my assistant.
And we're starting to really focus on TNS and like sort of being a media presence. So it was like really cool to work with you and get to see what nutrition in the media looked like. And I still didn't know too much about TNS until after that summer. I became an RD, passed my exam, started my practice, and I'm going about doing my practice, and I'm like, something is missing. Like, I was in school for the past 7 years, and I still don't feel confident with the way I'm running my business. And it was like, wait a minute, you never learned how to actually run a business, or really how to like counsel in a meaningful way that wasn't just an initial consultation and that's it. Like grad school, we learned a little bit about initial consultations, maybe a follow-up. In your internship, you're doing consultations in a hospital. It's not at all the same as private practice in a non-clinical setting. And it was like, what am I doing? And every time a client walked through the door for anything past the second session, I was like, I didn't feel confident. And it was like, wait a minute, maybe I should check out TNS. It kind of sounds like exactly what I'm looking for. And I enrolled like within the first 6 months of my business and like flew through the material because, you know, a portion of it is nutrition that I knew, still amazing refreshers and an amazing way to learn how to communicate with clients. Like, cause you could have all the information in the world, but if you can't dumb it down and learn how to communicate it to a client, it's pretty much useless.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I always just have you like, I still go back and watch modules. But like I have you in my head all the time and I'm just like, that was Keri that just came out of my mouth, but like it's effective. It like lands on people's ears really well. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But from that, I mean, my whole business just seemed, my private practice made sense. And I had systems and tools and silly things like etiquette, you know, like making sure that your referrals feel appreciated and you send a letter to them and all of that. Like, you know, having you pass down the knowledge that there's nothing better than experience. So the fact that you went ahead and had the 15 years of experience and then bundled it up for us, like a lot less mistakes are made.
Yeah, and what you're saying is exactly, you know, what I felt like I was missing when I was starting my practice. I really felt like I didn't have that guide. I didn't have that roadmap. I didn't have that something to give me that confidence. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And, you know, I did some things right. I did some things wrong. And I got to that point where I was like, why am there's so many amazing people out there wanting to give nutrition advice and help people. And it's an incredible field because most people in this field are so passionate about it and want to do so much good with it that was one of the big inspirations or really the inspiration for the Nutritious Life certification, because, you know, I wanted to share it. So then all of you can share it. And someone like you with your incredible passion and intelligence and just, again, who you are as a person, wanting to share your joy and passion for wellness. I mean, you are the perfect type of a person to take that information in and use it the way you did. So I remember actually I think you told me, I mean, I had gone through all the applications. I always go through all the applications, but I hadn't even known that you were applying. Like, you didn't email me ahead of time or anything to say you were applying. I think all of a sudden you were just like, oh, hey, I applied to TNS or I'm starting. And I was like, what? I didn't even know until you at least had applied.
Yeah. And I like you said, like, I'm the perfect person for it, but like, it doesn't feel like there is one perfect type of person.
That is true.
Like,
that is true.
When we go to, for Nutritious Life, we have master classes once a year, and like everybody in that room kind of is like the perfect person for it, no matter what they are. Like if they're a business owner and they're using this certification to help elevate that business, or a trainer or whatever it is, like I have a really easy time translating the program to registered dietitians, because I think for a lot of them, we feel like we have to have it figured out by the time we leave school, and it's kind of like embarrassing that we don't. but, or it could feel embarrassing. Like, you know, what did I just spend all my money and time on? I should know how to do this. But the truth is we're not given that, or business advice. Like there's so much to figure out once you want to go and do your own thing.
Yeah.
And,
but I think so, you know, you just mentioned our masterclass. I do think though at masterclass, there is such a variety of people, whether it's a, you know, a Pilates instructor, a healthy chef, a health writer. There is a big variety of people in our community, but there is, I think the thing that everyone has is that really incredible, intense passion for wellness and for themselves and for the people around them. They want to spread wellness. And I think that's, anybody that has that is truly probably the perfect person.
Right. And there's something about each person's personality that was very different than grad school, and maybe it's because we all kind of are a little bit different in what we use our certification for, but like, it's not a competitive environment. It's truly collaborative. What can I do to help you? And that's like the coolest part of it for me, and I think all of us, is because like the community is actually a community, and we're like, I know if somebody's TNS, like they're sort of like instant family. Like I want to help them and see what they're doing.
Oh, I love that. I love that you just said that. I love that you feel that way. That's amazing.
Well, when I was like thinking about TNS the other day, it's like, it's the only program that is a nutrition, because it's commonly thought of, debated between that and IIN. And like, for somebody like me, where relationships are important, I want to know the other students or the instructors, like it's a boutique, you know, and from that, like that's just super important to me. You know, it's not anything like IIN actually, from what I've gathered. But I know that people are always, I'm thinking between IIN and TNS. It's like, well, they are very different, but the main thing is like, do you like to really just work on your own and pursue that, or are you looking for community collaboration, networking, and mentorship that you get from you?
Yeah, and it's actually interesting. There are actually many people that actually have done both, and they find that they actually have worked well together, that they gain something from both programs. So that's also good. But actually, this is a little transition here. I wanted to ask you about two things, because you just mentioned, you know, having that community and connection and like that boutique feel where you could really connect with people. And so it brings me to where you are now with your social media, and also where you are with your career overall. With your social media, you share, you know, long form, very deep content, I would say, personal and deep, I guess I would say, content that still relates to what you're doing in wellness. So the two questions I have for you on that is, how did you get there? Like, did you imagine always doing that? How did you get there? And then I guess that brings me to sort of your, you know, where you are now in your career. I think they both connect. So fill us in a little bit on that. Because I think you do the personal and long form content incredibly well, and with an amazing amount of authenticity. And I feel like that word is so overused in social media, by the way. And I feel like I always say people have to say they're authentic, then they're not authentic.
I'm so real.
If you have to say it, then it's not. Don't say it. But my point is, you're not saying it. I'm saying it about you. So that's the difference.
Well, I think that the reason it feels authentic to you and to me and to my audience is simply because I don't do it for like a gain, short-term or long-term, meaning like I don't share something and then go back and be like, but I'm being so real. Why don't I have so many more followers? You know, not that, or like, hey, like this is my story. Now come and buy something for me, you know? Right. So there's no short or long-term gain for me. Selfishly, a lot of what I say is cathartic. Like I used to be, the way it started, just to get back to your question, is like the word influencer didn't exist. Like I was always using social media sort of from my heart. And then it kind of grew into not my account, the Instagram social media grew in such a sort of crazy way that it wasn't what it started to be. So I used to the way it started was just sharing from my heart. After a yoga class, I had all these thoughts, nowhere to put them, and I put them out into the universe. And like, it was amazing to have instant communication, whereas normally these would just be like thoughts in my head that kind of come and pass. And so it's kind of like started as a journal, I guess. Wow. I didn't know it was at the time, but it was just like a projection of my thoughts. But most of the time you don't get to hear somebody's thoughts. So I think people liked that. Over the years, I'd say it's evolved, because the one difference between then and now is like, I will never post anything just to serve myself. Like if I'm having a bad day or I want to get something off of my chest, like that doesn't serve my audience. If I think that I'm having a bad day and I can share it in a way that can be like, this, you know, days like this happen, we could all, you know, by showing this vulnerability, we could all recognize that we don't always have to like come up on our feeds, you know, wearing the most perfect athleisure matching top and bottom and, you know, the whole perfected look that there is. Like, then I'll share a message like that. But anything that I share at this point in my career is like, what will this do for my audience? And
right. So, is it giving them something that may benefit them? Is it going to help them in some way?
It doesn't have to be nutrition related. For me, which is really, really cool too, because no, I never expected to like be able to help people in the very distant ways that I do. But yeah, I think that the other thing is like, there is no one path for social media either. I see when I'm on Facebook, like all these courses, like how to do social media. And I think that's like really funny, because you can't be taught how to be authentic. You could definitely learn some strategies or, you know, posting regularity, but there's like the Instagram on its own is too like elusive. Like there's no right formula. It's always changing. It's above all of us, you know?
Yeah. And that's what I was just going to say, that it's also, by the time you take a course like that, probably it's going to change, right? I mean, something like, social media, we know changes so often, and it is really specific to the individual and the individual's personal life and business. And are you doing social media for, is it a business account? Is it a personal account? Are those two things the same, one and the same? So it really is so different for each individual.
Right. And where's that point of something you shouldn't be sharing, you know, as a professional? Like, it's a hat that, as I stepped into a role as being a dietitian, like, I think then I sort of started to suffocate my own, like, real me, because I was trying to appear as a professional with all of the information and the, you know, did you know that kale has 89 grams of calcium? No, like, posts that start with "did you know" just like drive me nuts. Just like, that just means that the person Googled it, you know, like nobody knows that kale has 87 grams of calcium.
Right. Totally.
But I think that like for like a year or two, maybe like I lost sight of like what my account was, who I was to the internet, because I was trying to start a business, trying to then merge that with an account that was really just like my voice whenever I wanted to post something. And so for a few years, like, and then I was like, you know, wanted to grow so bad, but I wasn't growing. Like, there was like a year or two where I just like wasn't myself, and therefore wasn't enjoying social media, wasn't getting the interactions with people that I like. And so everybody's balance looks different. But for me, you know, the way that I do business is I think about my audience. Will it serve them? Will it hurt them? If it hurts them, it's not going to come out of my mouth, or, you know, I'm not going to work with a brand that will not elevate them or I think wouldn't be useful with them. And then just sharing bits and pieces of my real life, which is like really fun for me. I like don't have one secret to my name. Not so fun when you then have like other people, like Evan, my fiance, is very private. And so like the times that he wants to be on social media, I have to be like respectful of, but I always kind of want to like pull him in, you know, like I think, why not? Who cares? It's funny that you don't have hair gel in and that you're sitting on the couch. And he's like, I'm a cardiologist, Lisa. You know, like, and I'm like, but this is our real life, you know, so not everybody likes that degree of openness, and many people have family. I think the reason I'm saying this is you also just, as you bring people into your lives, you have to be respectful of their privacy, whether they're babies or teenagers like you have.
Yeah.
And so you grow with social media. So what I choose to share is always chosen to share but I try and really mix up all different types of content, because that is what is, like, you can burn out on that platform very fast if you're just looking to grow followers, because it's the second you want to grow, you won't grow. Like,
Right. It's so you kind of have to let it go and just let that part of it go and decide what you want to put out there. Whether it is, you know, like you said, almost like cathartic and a form of journaling and sharing different parts of your life, or it is, you know, more curated business content, regardless of what it is. And that might be what you want to share, though. You kind of have to decide what you want to share, what you want to put out there, and let go a little bit of that, you know, intensity around the growth of it.
and the best thing you could really do for your Instagram, whether you have 500 followers, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 400,000, is instead of well, at least for me, like, instead of focusing on growing new, like, engaging with what exists. Like, if you have 1,000 followers, that's 1,000 people. That is a lot of people, even though on Instagram that doesn't feel like a lot. But that's 1,000 people that want to hear from you. Like, nurture. I forget who it was. Someone in business always talks about, like, nurturing your smallest viable audience.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a huge shift for me to start thinking about that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it's actually one of the reasons, like I always say, you know, our community of Nutritious Life certified people, like, it's not 1 million people, right? But every single one of you is so incredibly just really, I guess, brings your own specific, like you mentioned, bring your own unique, you know, tools and personality and expertise to the world. And so I think within the community, sorry, not to bring it back there, but that just reminded me of it when you said that. It's like every single person has such an individual expertise and does bring something new and unique. And I think, you know, because you've mentioned to me before, how do you, like, get on the phone with this person and meet that person? And I always say, you know, all of you are so passionate and such, you know, want to do so much good in the world. Like, why would I not jump on that opportunity? If someone wants some help, like, why wouldn't I jump on that opportunity to help make that happen? If I can help, I'm not saying I can help everything, but if I can and someone's asking for that, why would I not jump on that? So I kind of actually, when you just said that, I'd never really thought about it exactly like that. But when you're just talking about that, it's almost like the Nutritious Life Studio community, that would be like my like, let's say Instagram, like, that's my real world little, you know, pot of people that I just enjoy so much interacting with.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, you get the reward from interacting with them and giving them your time more than you would get from 1,000 followers that just make your number go from, you know, whatever. And I just see people get lost in that rat race, for lack of a better word, over and over again. And as somebody that has, you know, wanted to quit social media, not in a long time, because I've really changed my mindset, but in 2 years ago, I'd say, you know, just like, I always sort of thought of the idea of, well, I don't have to do this. I'm not good enough for it. And then as soon as I really got rid of that idea and started to have fun with it again and engage with strangers, as weird as it sounds, like, that's where, like, the fun is. And
right.
If you're not having fun on social media, you're going to burn out and hate it. Your content's going to suck. You're not going to want to share. And it's this, you know, endless cycle where you also burn out if you're a creative person too. I see this all the time. People that like start as Instagram for some sort of a creative outlet, whether it's like in their words or their photos, whether it's shots of them in it with editing techniques or food. Cause I'm not really, in some ways I'm creative, but I'm not an artist. Like, so it's interesting that people use this platform, but as they grow, brands want to work with them. And then they start working with brands, and then they start working with a lot of brands. And then before they know it, like, they've lost sense of who they are, how much creativity they could actually put into it, and they're not having fun anymore. So.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I think you have really integrated. And I know that you're having more fun with it now. I mean, we've talked about that, but I think you can also see it. And I think you have really integrated, like I said, some people are personal, some people are business on there, and you've really, you know, integrated those two in a truly, I'm going to use the word, talking about you, I'm not saying it on social, authentic way, in a really great way that, again, I think, like you said, it serves your audience, but it serves you as well. I mean, it lights you up, talking to people, responding to people, and there lights you up, kind of like I was saying, it lights me up, you know, working with our individual TNS students.
Yeah, and like the vulnerabilities that, and I call them that because that's what people call them, like that I talk about, like, for me, it doesn't feel vulnerable. Like, I've been in therapy my entire life, and I think that just like always ripping the Band-Aid off of your feelings just kind of like caught up with me. Like, I'm not ashamed of my feelings or, you know, previous weird relationships to food. And so when I put something out there, like, I'm not like shaking before I like press enter. I just put it out there. And so everybody's like, I now hear people say things like, oh, I know I should be real and share this part of my story. It's like, if that is not comfortable for you, don't do it. Like,
exactly.
We don't need everybody talking about all of their hard stuff for the sake of just talking about their hard stuff.
1000%. I am so glad you just brought that up, because I feel like I see that. I see people, it's like they read somewhere, they took one of those courses you were just talking about, and they said, be real, share your personal stories. And so you can almost sense that in a post when somebody's sharing something really personal, because they're like, I'm going to be really personal. I think that's what people want, not because it truly feels good to be doing it and it's natural for them to do it. I think that is such a good point. And if that's the way then that's not being real, and that's not really what you should be putting out there. You have whatever you put out there, whether it's a lot or a little, or it goes, very personal or not very personal, it should still be, it can still be real and not a lot of sharing.
Exactly.
It can be,
and if like sharing nutrition facts, is your voice in that way, even like the did you know, which I joked about, but like, it's like how you like to deliver information, and that's natural to you. It's just not natural to me, which is why I mocked it. That is a totally fine thing to say. Like, everybody needs to serve audiences in different ways, and just being real about your relationships or your, mental health isn't the only way to do it.
Completely agree.
Do everything, like we need people to hear each different thing that they're good at.
Yeah, completely agree. So I'm going to go back a little bit to, you'd mentioned, so then you got to your private practice, you were using a lot of the tools that you got in the course, and then, but you've shifted. I got to the shift that you've made with social media, but let's go back to the rest of your business shift, because I think you've done some really incredible things over the past year. And I want you to share that with everybody, because there are so many different paths to take. You again started a practice, and then now you're doing something different, and there are just so many paths.
I will. And in the blog that I wrote about finding a mentor and included you, in my original draft, I told this story, but I just was having a hard time like typing it and wording it correctly. So I just took it out, but it's a really good story for nutrition professionals to kind of like learn about how to find themselves, and like also how you work as a mentor. I don't even know if you remember this, but
I was just going to say, I am so curious right now if I know the story. Or if I remember it.
You probably don't remember, but you'll say, oh, that sounds like something I would say. The first year I started my business, I really just was trying to give people what I thought that they wanted. And so I created a program, and I wanted people to sign up for this 2-week program. And it was not a cleanse, but I called it a cleanse. Or like a detox or something like that. Not language that fits my brand at all right now, but at that time I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my brand. I didn't even know what I believed in nutrition. So for me, this is what I thought people wanted, and it's like actually the opposite of like my truth, but I didn't know that at the time. And I got kickback. I went on a podcast, and these women like viciously took me down for, it wasn't a diet, but promoting a cleanse. I think cleanse was the word, or detox. I forget what it was. And it wasn't like, the actual program wasn't actually like gross, or like really about weight loss or whatever, but it had like a tone to it that wasn't me. And I remember like talking to you and being like, well, this is what I'm doing. And you're like, well, what is your personal philosophy? Do you believe in cleanses? And I forget if you said you did or didn't, but you were like, I personally blah, 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 but it doesn't matter what I think. You need to be promoting what you believe to be true. And it was like, oh, okay. Like you don't just create what you think the consumer wants. Like it needs to fit your philosophy, and you're not going to have a philosophy or maybe the correct philosophy day one out the door.
Right. I
remember you guiding me and being like, you don't have to agree with what I agree with, but you need to be, whatever you're promoting needs to agree with what you're saying.
Right.
And I think that like kind of started to unravel in the next year as I was working with people. And when you have a new business, you don't really get to select who you work with. You take what you can get. And as a dietitian, you have skills to work with a very wide range of a population. So I was working with everybody, anybody that a doctor would refer me to, which was great, but it just like wasn't really like lighting up my soul. I mean, it was cool to get people, off of their diabetes medication or to have their Crohn's flare up under control, but I don't know, just didn't feel like my real purpose. And so after about a year or so, it was like, okay, what do I need? What new tools do I need to be able to like serve the audience that I want? And the one major shift in my life was just this like really easy, effortless relationship to food. And I didn't know how to deliver that to clients. How could I teach this, because I didn't really take a course to get here either.
Right.
And I remember like I just picked up a book on mindful eating. I don't even know where I got it. And as I'm turning the pages, it was like, oh my God, this is what I'm doing. This is how I have the freedom, but I didn't even know there was like a term for it, kind of a thing. It was like, how could I teach mindful eating? And I think with anything, like you need to, before you teach something, you need to maybe not necessarily have a certification, but at least get the tools to do it. And for me, certifications are important, like going through some sort of a system, a teaching process. So I did another online course on mindful eating, teaching mindful eating. And from there started to like integrate that into what I knew before, what I learned from TNS, and sort of created this like non-existent way to talk to clients that combined both nutrition education, science, with inner wisdom, which is like the intuition part, but not necessarily just intuition, just learning how to listen to their body and be kind to it and go easy on it rather than like hitting the pavement hard type of a thing or creating rules or, all that stuff. And so sort of tested working those together for probably a year and a half, 2 years probably, and really figured out like what steps were necessary to get people to really believe in their bodies while also bringing in really valuable nutrition information that we have. Like we don't need to neglect nutrition at the sake of listening to our bodies. Like people think, oh, listening to my bodies, I'll just have French fries all day. It's not how it works. That actually won't happen, A. But B, there's no shame in also understanding that. I always use like a very basic example, but like that greens are really good for you, that they bring in important minerals, that they have fiber, that they, add to a meal, but you can bring those two together. And so the big transition that I've made in the last month or two really is working with, so I created an online course as opposed to working one-on-one. I still do work one-on-one, but a lot less. And I'm being very selective as to who I take on now, because I have a pool of students that require less of my time individually, but cumulatively require a lot of my time.
Well, and also it sounds like over the course of the past couple of years, you have found, like from where you came from with the detox cleanse 2-week thing, you have really found your voice, your philosophy, and really what you want to educate people on. I mean, nutrition is education, right? And you have really found the thing that you want to educate people on. So once you have that, you want to be putting that energy into that. You want to be putting your energy into that. So, I know when you've talked about your course, you get so excited, and I can feel the energy you have for it, because it is the information you want to be putting out there. And so I can see when you still see clients, right, you're going to want to have clients who are the right fit for that philosophy. They're going to receive that because you put a lot of energy into it. You want people who are going to be able to receive that. And that makes a lot of sense. And you have come, by the way, so far in just the past, obviously overall business wise, but just in your actual philosophy and really pulling it together in a really meaningful way.
And I don't think you have to have it, you can't possibly have it all figured out when you start your business. Like, no. You have to be open to the fact that, like, what you believe in now might not be what you believe in. And when it comes time to shift, like, move with the shift, because there's an audience waiting for you on the other side of that, even if you're afraid of kind of neglecting who you are. And in my case, the audience, I wasn't serving my current audience the way they needed to be served. I was assuming that they wanted A, B, and C, but like their deeper level of consciousness was where I was actually at. I was just afraid to go there, I think.
Right. And you had more to give. You had more to give than this 2-week thing that you thought they wanted. You had so much more to give from your soul, from your heart. There was so much more of you to give, to put out there, to share. Yeah. And I think, you're doing it in such a beautiful way right now. So I'm really proud of you.
We had a masterclass for TNS this year. We broke out in groups, and it was I had my course, mostly the idea, mostly fleshed out, maybe created, but I was really struggling with how to deliver it, because there's a zillion ways to do everything, and sort of taking the leap to commit to one is really scary. Should I give them all the content at once? Should I have enrollment versus having it open all the time, all these things? And I got such good feedback from my group because, like I said, it's collaborative, not competitive. So there was no one in my group that was like, she's doing this, now I can't do this, We
have the most supportive, empowering. That's like my favorite part of this community, that I see it all the time. So incredibly supportive of each other. Sorry, go on.
No, exactly. But there was maybe a dietitian in the group or somebody that also does similar things to me. But the fact that there was somebody that, is really good at social media, that's how she makes her money. Somebody that was a trainer but has done programs before, or somebody that whatever, like Karen, who works for you, came and spoke to me about like how she thinks it could be most successful. And just having like collaborative feedback was really helpful in helping me actually figure out the way that I designed it. And that was really great.
Amazing. I love that. Well, you also take in, you're very good at being a sponge for information. You really take constructive criticism, you take feedback, you want to learn, which is so important for anyone in this field, because we have to constantly be learning and reading new research that comes out, and we have to stay on our toes, and there's always more to learn. And I truly, I see that in you. And I think I see that in the most successful people in wellness. They're willing to put out their information, but constantly receive and learn and grow with that.
In any field or anything, the second you get concrete or stubborn, like you are just resisting change.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a couple more questions before we have to end, because this is so wonderful hearing your story. And again, some of it I knew, some of it I didn't know, but I really...
Yeah, we're fashionistas, the two of us.
It's inspiring. I love it. It's inspiring. Wait, did you say fashionistas?
Yeah, you didn't go into nutrition, but I thought to fashion. But
I was going to say, I was never a fashionista, though.
Yeah, when you first said that you had a similar background, I was like, oh, you were a fashion.
Oh, no. I just didn't believe in myself and the science side of it. Anyway, though, but by the way, back to your story for a second of when you did that podcast, I think it was, where you got kind of, hit about your beliefs, and that I do remember that. I think you actually texted me over the weekend and wanted to talk about it. And I think you were a little nervous about, oh my God, they completely slammed me or something like that. And
it wasn't anything that I actually said on the podcast. They went back and looked at my social media, and they actually, it was unfounded what they said, but it made me think nonetheless. Like, they were just mad that the way I looked actually is what they were judging me on, not actually anything that I said, but it made me then really get clear on my messaging and wording so that nothing could be misconstrued.
Yeah. But it was funny because when you were telling that story now, I have this vague memory of texting with you and then getting on the phone with you about it. So anyway, I hope I was helpful. Anyway, I'm glad though that it's almost like, but I actually want to bring up another point about that. That's why I actually brought this up, was it goes to show you how sometimes those things that give you that pit in the stomach, or that feel like a failure right away, or that might, make you insecure for a moment about business and what you're doing, they actually are usually the best learning experiences.
100%. I mean, those are the pivotal moments in your career. You
So
look
yeah,
back, you don't know it at the moment, but you look back and they're
right. And it might sting and it might hurt and it might feel uncomfortable for a little bit, but if you get through it the right way, which you usually do, you learn from it. And regardless if it was a good or bad experience, that experience helps you grow. So I'm glad that you used that experience in such a good way. Okay, so question. What do you feel like you had to sacrifice for your career to get you where you are right now?
I was talking about this with a friend of mine who is a speech pathologist, and she really wants to quit her job to go into something more entrepreneurial. And, I said there's sort of like two ways to live life. You go to your 9 to 5, and when you're done, you get to step into your real life where you soak up your family and your friends, and you get to be you and your hobbies and the thing that you enjoy. Or you step into a very non-9 to 5, but that becomes your life, and the perimeter is kind of like your family and your friends and your hobbies. And so even though people see entrepreneurs like myself working from home, I'm not going to lie, I absolutely love working from home, but there are sacrifices that go into it. Even when I look back on the last 10 years, I'm planning a wedding now, and all the people, if you asked me 5 years ago, who I thought would be at my wedding, who I simply lost touch with, or our lives went differently, like, those are not, you didn't know they were sacrifices at the time, but like when I couldn't go to X and Y's this because I had a grad school exam, our friendship shifted, like our lives went differently. But I think that there's all those types of sacrifices all the time. And if you work a 9 to 5, which by the way, and I don't say that to say that a 9 to 5 is like something that is like lesser than being entrepreneurial.
No, it's just a different way. It's just a different way. And for some people, that's the perfect way to shift, to have work here, personal life here, and to have consistency and security.
Like how great would it be in theory to, step away from your computer at 5 o'clock and not look at it when you get back. Evan and I, my fiance and I, have the same type of mindset. But last year I went on a conference with him, and I sat at the pool with a doctor who was there that was not there for the conference. And I was sitting there at the pool, writing blog posts, on calls, jumping up and down, really enjoying myself. Don't get me wrong. I was at the pool, but she was passed out next to me, like doesn't even have to check her email. So Evan and her are both doctors, but Evan is the type of doctor that works 12 hours a day, then stays late and whatever. And then the weekends he works and everything, where she works really hard during her time at work. And when she's not at work, just the type of doctor she is, she's like living,
Right. It really it comes down to finding, again, we talked about finding your path. It's finding the path and the life that works for you. And what works for one person doesn't always work for the other. You just have to really think about what works for you, what is going to make you happy. And when people ask me, by the way, how much do you work? Like, you have your own business, you have 2 kids, like how many hours a week do you work, or how much do you work? And I say, it really varies, but also there's no start and finish. It's kind of all the time, but that doesn't mean that it's all the time and I'm not doing really fun things and spending a ton of time with my kids. It just means that when I'm at the farmer's market and then I bring home some, lots of fresh berries and I create a recipe with Maisie, my daughter, that's sort of work, but it's also incredible family time with my daughter. So it does start to blend when you're an entrepreneur, in our types of fields, at least, I believe.
And you're the star, because being a mom and working the way you do is that's my goal one day.
You will get there 100%. So, okay, we only have a couple more minutes. And I really want to make sure I get this question in. So for someone that's an entrepreneur working for themselves, whether in wellness or not, what is your biggest piece of advice?
Get to know who you are. do, like I said before, like work on your smallest, if you are somebody that relies on people to make money, so whether you're a blogger or nutritionist or something like that, again, that smallest viable audience, like don't neglect them at the sake of reaching for more. Another piece of advice these are all given to me, so I'm just regurgitating thoughts that are in my head all the time, but the second you stop talking about your audience's problem, they move on. So whatever it is that your niche is, you need to be talking about it all the time, which goes back to my piece of advice is it better be true to you, and it better be something that is not a fad and something that you truly like believe in, because it's got to last a long time and you need to be really like steadfast in that. And then I think most importantly is like find a community that you can lean on and don't be afraid to ask them questions. I mean, my two best friends who are dietitians, I actually met through TNS. I realized that this week, Abby and Molly and you, of course. And then I have friends who are not dietitians within TNS that I can lean on as well. And it just feels like a very non-judgmental space too. Like there's very few online forums, and I'm in a lot of them that I know I could ask a question and not feel like judged, you know?
I love that. I love that. I'm so happy that you did this. I'm so grateful that you shared your story. It really is such a beautiful journey. And, you know, I know you've had your highs and lows, and I know you're in a really wonderful place right now. And of course, we're all going to have more highs and we're all going to have more lows. And it's always a journey, especially when you're an entrepreneur. But I'm just really grateful that you're in our TNS community and that you shared that story. I know it's inspirational to so many people.
I'm so excited for our upcoming class. When is the last day to apply?
The last day to apply is Sunday, this coming Sunday. And so actually, and if you do apply by Sunday, you also do get $250 off. It's considered our early enrollment period.
Perfect.
And
when do they find out? That's the best day.
Tuesday.
Oh, Sunday. Tuesday. Is it by Tuesday they find out?
Yes. I've actually already started reading applications that have come in.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We love you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Wait, and tell everybody, just in case they don't know where to find you.
Okay, it's a bad name for this, but the Well Necessities, THEWELL, and then I hopefully will come up in the word necessities.
You will pop up. She will pop up. You will find her. Mwah. Love you, Lee.
Love you.
Bye.